So Tornado at Bagan used to be the craziest spinning coaster I'd ever done, and while that probably still has one of the craziest elements I've ever done, there's no doubt that the Ride to Happiness is officially the most insane spinning coaster I've ever ridden.
This is madness!
Today I'm gonna review this weird, incredibly amazing son of a bitch of a coaster that is located at Belgium's Plopsaland de Panne. The Ride to Happiness has gained a lot of attention recently, just because it deserves it. It's an amazing ride. Its place in the park is sort of their primary launched looping coaster now. They had Anubis before, or well, they still have it, but now this is another launched looping coaster that is bigger and better in most ways. And it also serves as the park spinning coaster, so if you want to ride a spinning coaster at this park, you're gonna have to put your big boy pants on. Many people say it's one of the world's best. There are people out there who have ridden way more coasters than me that rank it way at the top. I rode it in July of 2022, and we'll start off with the technical category. The Ride to Happiness is manufactured by MACK Rides, and it is an extreme spinning coaster. It's only the second one ever after Time Travel opened 3 years before in 2018 in Silver Dollar City in Missouri. So it's actually the first one in Europe, and well, I already can't wait to see more of them. Basically what makes the model is that MACK Rides takes their normal spinning coaster model for families and they make it into an LSM launched coaster with inversions and extreme forces. The cars are also bigger and bulkier, and they have very controlled spin. So that basically means that yes, they are free spinning, but they're not spinning at an insanely fast rate. It can control them kind of to change the spin. I think at least that's how it works. The trains are super comfortable with very nice seats and lap bars, and the restraints also lock, so you don't have to worry about them coming down during the ride. If you want airtime, you're gonna get airtime. There can be 16 riders on each train over 8 rows, 4 different cars that each spin, and it opened in 2021 along with Conda, which means that Belgium got a hell of a year in 2021. It's 108.3 feet tall, making it only the second tallest in the park after Anubis actually. It's 3,018.4 feet long, which is less than 2 feet shorter than Time Traveler. They're basically the same length. And it goes 55.9 miles an hour, which is the fastest in the park, also along with Anubis. It has 7 inversions, and now that is controversial for many people because several people say it has 6 inversions because they count the banana roll as one continuous inversion, but I personally count that as a double inversion. To me, it inverts twice. But of course, if you think otherwise, that's completely understandable.
You smell that? It smells like someone's wrong. And it's not me.
It has a duration of 1 minute and 12 seconds, which is mind-blowing. That's from when it leaves the station until it hits the final brake run, and considering how intense this coaster is, that's an insanely long ride.
I'm colorblind.
So before going to this park, my friends and I had a debate of what color the Ride to Happiness was, and I was expecting to finally figure out what color it actually was when I went there, because usually coasters look different in person than they do on photos and videos. Beforehand, I thought it was going to be either brown, red, and purple, and well, after having finally seen it in person, I still don't fucking know. There's something weird about this ride where, depending on the angle and the lighting, the color is, like, different. I've settled on brown. It's brown, I guess, but sometimes it still looks red or purple. Ultimately, it is a beautiful ride. It looks amazing. It is a great color scheme. The trains match really well, and it's just beautiful to look at in regards to the structure going over the area, and especially the part over the water, and the fact that it's right in the center of the park. You can look at this coaster from anywhere in the park, pretty much. Absolutely amazing to look at. It's photogenic, and the trains rolling by because of their spin and because of the pacing they have, it's absolutely hypnotic to watch. It really is a fantastic off-ride experience.
Guys, this is what dying feels like.
So before explaining the layout of Ride to Happiness, I should mention that the spinning certainly makes a difference as to how each element feels. And I mean, that really boosts the re-rideability of this coaster. It starts out with a curved JoJo roll. Because of the lap bars, you get a scary amount of hang time on this element. It's actually frightening, but absolutely amazing. And because of its curved, you also get out of your seat a bit faster, I think. Then you hop onto the launch pad, which has a small boost actually getting you to the point that you need to be at. Then you stop, wait for it, and then it launches. And I gotta say, for a MACK launch, it's actually a very powerful launch. It's a very good launch. Not only that, but it also makes the spinning go absolutely crazy. Or that depends. If you're not really spinning before it launches, the controlled spin will make you spin a lot. But if you're spinning a lot before the launch might actually stop your spinning. So that's what I basically mean with a controlled spin that kind of, you know, makes sure you don't vomit all over the place. But nonetheless, the launch is super snappy. The valley going up into the top hat also has a very good dose of positive forces, probably the best on the ride actually. And then the top of this wicked top hat that my friends and I have dubbed it gives a very good burst of ejector airtime in the front row and still some decent floater in the back row. Then at the top of the top hat you have a curved 90-degree turn that bangs outwards. You get some sideways hang time, but because of the spin you don't necessarily think about it too much. It's more cool than thrilling, really. And then of course the drop from the top hat is fucking insane. A lot of people say it's very similar to Time Traveler's drop out of the station, and if that's the case, I want to ride Time Traveler, because in the front row this already gives amazing floater airtime, and in the back row this gives hardcore ejector airtime. It's fantastic. The bottom of the drop also gives a nice sustained amount of positive forces. Note that from now on all the positive forces are not mind-blowingly strong, but they have some pretty good strength to them. I think they're very decent positive forces moment, and they're very sustained as well, and it's the same with this valley. Then there's the banana roll, and this was probably my least favorite inversion of the ride. Not because it's bad though, because the thing is, this inversion is very cool and very fun to go through, but it doesn't necessarily do too much regarding thrill. It actually doesn't really feel like an inversion at all. It feels like a weird overbank, but I still count it as a double inversion. Anyway, because of the spinning, it's super fun and very disorientating, but regarding forces you won't find a ton of things on here. Up next is the vertical loop, and the valley going into the loop and out of the loop are both decently forceful, just like the bottom of the drop, and at the top of the loop you also get a short dose of solid hang time. It's actually probably my favorite vertical loop I've done, just because of the nice mix of forces and also because of the spinning. The spinning makes it a lot cooler, especially going sideways through a vertical loop is very, very fun. After then is the step up underflip, or the 0G roll. I call it a step up underflip because it is a 270-degree roll followed by a 180-degree turn. It's literally the same thing as Untamed to me. Anyway, this is the whippiest moment of the ride in my opinion, especially in the front row, and the best way to go through this element is sideways, which I did almost every time anyway, which was amazing, because that means you get an insanely good flip while flipping downwards or upwards, which is very bizarre feeling and reminds me a lot of some flat rides I've tried, like a Loop Fighter or a KMG Inversion 24, and I'm pretty sure this is actually my favorite inversion on the ride as well. The turn in the element also gives a nice dose of positive forces, and then comes this twisted hill, which up front actually gives a pretty decent whip, but through the rest of the train you're not really gonna feel much here until you hit the second launch, which also has a very nice boost to it. There's not a massive kick here, but it is definitely noticeable. The greater thing about this launch is the bunny hill that's in the middle of it, which in the front row is gonna give some very nice and accelerating floater airtime, if that makes any sense. And in the back row you're gonna get some strong ejector airtime here, which feels even crazier because you're launching at the same time. It's really kick-ass. Then is the flying snake dive. Now officially this is known as a double inverting dive loop, but to me it's the same as a flying snake dive on Storm Runner, which is an upwards barrel roll followed by a dive drop. That's a flying snake dive to me, so that's what I'm calling this thing. Anyway, it's a very, very good inversion element. Up front, you're gonna get a very good whip going into the element, and then you're pretty much gonna stay out of your seat through the entire roll until you hit the second part of the dive drop itself. In the back roll, you'll get more gradually out of your seat, but you will also stay out of your seat, and you'll get a pretty okay whip going down into the dive drop as well. I wasn't as mind blown by this element as I thought it was gonna be, but nonetheless, it's still one of my favorite elements in the ride. It is incredibly floaty, and it just feels super cool somehow as well. The bottom of the dive drop in this valley also gives another solid dose of positive forces, and then you have the twisted camelback, which actually grants great ejector airtime through the entire train, and at the top, when it turns to the left, you also get a great whip toward the right as well. That was actually quite a surprise, because it's like a really fast lateral jolt. The bottom of these valleys and going through the overbank also delivers some positive forces, although not mind-blowingly strong, they are certainly there and very sustained. And then finally, you have the double up, which consists of the two strongest airtime moments of the ride. This double up is the only element on any non-RMC ride I've tried that actually gives RMC strength ejector airtime. This double up, especially when it had warmed up and if you sit in the front row, gave ejector airtime that's pretty much on par with untamed. It's very strong ejector air time, and you can definitely feel it on your thighs as well. It's fantastic and such a banger of a finale for this layout. And that is the layout of Ride to Happiness, which you can hear is definitely intense and very kick-ass. Although there are a few elements that definitely lack a little bit in forces, most of them definitely make up for it, and because of the spinning, it's never boring at all. It's a banger, it's fire.
It's time to ranch it up!
The pacing of the Ride to Happiness is very good, however there are some slower parts, those generally being the top hat and the flying snake dive. Now because of the spin, because of the onboard audio, and because of the elements in between, those moments don't really matter when it comes to the pacing, because the pacing is kept up by other things than plain speed. It's one of those rides where even though it has slower parts, it's kind of a good thing, and really makes up for what this ride does very well. Of course, there also is the part where it stops before the first launch, but I actually really like that because you've just had an amazing inversion and then you sit there waiting for the launch that doesn't have a warning, it just happens. And that really adds some scare factor to me, which is amazing. But yeah, overall, the spinning definitely makes the pacing better than without. I would have still liked the flying snake dive to maybe be a tad faster, but it's so much a nitpick because it's still a great inversion. I know I'm picking on it a lot, but I love it, okay, I swear.
You were shaking my brain.
The Ride to Happiness is overall smooth, apart from the valleys. Pretty much every single valley has a rattle, so that means that this ride gets a rattle as a result of positive forces. Now, it might have something to do with the temperature. It was hot when I was there, because a lot of people say they never really noticed it that much, but to me, it was a pretty bad rattle. It was bad enough to give me headaches and unfortunately ruined the re-rideability for me a bit on this ride. It wasn't uncomfortable in itself, the rattle. This is very much just a problem with me getting headaches from it, so therefore it is not perfect. But it's still not like a super shaky rattle. It's more one of those that, you know, vibrate through your body rather than throw you around, because it definitely doesn't throw you around in any way. It overall is a smooth coaster. Not perfect, a bit of a bummer that it has this rattle after only being 1 year old, but most people seem to not care about it, which is great.
Tomorrow. It's tomorrow, not tomorrow.
The Ride to Happiness is themed to Tomorrowland, which is a big music festival. It's incredibly big and epic. And because it's themed to music, you also have that onboard audio on the trains, which is so fantastic and adds a lot to the ride. It's not incredibly loud, but it does so much because it also matches the layout itself. It feels so much more epic because of that, and I love epicness. The cars also look fantastic. They very much look like the ones on Time Traveler with like gears and stuff. The station itself is really cool looking, simple but with some great details here and there, especially the head and the few things around it. The queue line is also great. There's some very good details and audio in this queue line that actually builds up some more hype and epicness for the ride. I actually got some Europa Park vibes in this queue line, which was very impressive, and even the outside part of the queue line was very beautiful as well. The overall area also has some light theming, which is also great. It definitely feels like the entire area is, you know, the Tomorrowland area. So I have really no complaints about the theming. It's overall very well fulfilled, especially for such a small park. I mean, this is one of the reasons that this park is underrated to me, because they do theming very well here. Overall, the Ride to Happiness is insane because, first of all, the layout is nuts, but the spinning makes it even crazier because you don't know which direction you'll take elements at. Pretty much everything on the ride slaps hard. It also has some of the most well-executed inversions of their types, and again, it's so hard to nitpick on this ride because it generally is insanely intense for a spinning coaster, and the spinning and the onboard audio, all of that makes it so much better as well. No moment on this ride is wasted, and even the slower moments are made up for. For a final score, it was pretty hard for me to decide because overall this coaster is definitely perfect in many ways, but there is that small rattle. The highest score I can give is 10+, but I'm gonna give the Ride to Happiness an even 10 out of 10. This ride is absolutely amazing, and it absolutely deserves the top score. 10+ is only the bonus if it's so incredibly mind-blowing and perfect that I really can't think of anything wrong with it as well. The rattle is definitely a problem because it shakes up my brain and kind of ruined the re-rideability for me. That's the reason I only wrote this 3 times where my friends wrote it more than me. But nonetheless, it is definitely a nitpick that most people seem to not care about. It's way more a me problem where I'm the issue. I could not justify giving it any less than 10 out of 10, and for me personally, it just doesn't get the 10 plus, even though it would for most people. It's a smaller thing because of how great the coaster is overall, and it is still one of my favorite coasters of all time. I loved it to bits. It absolutely blew me away. It was even slightly better than I expected. I can't wait to see more of these, especially since the second one already seemed to be far crazier than the first. I'm very intrigued to see what kind of elements they'll flop onto the next of this model. It'll undoubtedly gain great attention, although the Ride to Happiness has suffered a bit from short lines in Plopsaland. I'm not sure if Plopsaland was the best park for this to go to because of the target audience. When we were there were several rides that had a far longer line than the Ride to Happiness, which is really sad considering how big of a thing this is for them. Nonetheless, I am so thrilled they did it anyway, and they executed it so well and did such a good job with everything on it. So I love this coaster. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this, even beforehand, and I am so excited to ride this again one day, hopefully. And well, otherwise, I want to wish you everybody a happy Sunday. I'm recording this on a Sunday. Bye!